What's happening, Bengals fans? Welcome to episode 12 of Inside the Jungle. Glad you're with us here on this Tuesday evening, live here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm Subs. Lots to discuss this week. It was quite the shindig down in Miami over the weekend as the Bengals, you guessed it, once again fell 19-7 to the Dolphins. A much different game compared to a year ago down in Miami. So we're going to talk about all the ongoings that happened during that game. The coaching, the penalties, the officiating, all of it is going to be discussed tonight here on the program. Of course, we want you to have your say, Bengals fans. So make sure you get in touch with us tonight. We will have the phone line open. 513-572-7757 is the number to call. We want to know what your best and worst from the weekend was and where the Bengals should go from here, whether that's coaching or the draft, free agency. This is your chance to have your say tonight here on the show. If you're listening to us after the fact, you can always hit us up on Twitter at Inside Jungle Pod, and you can email us insidethejunglepod@gmail.com. All right, let's welcome in my guys this week. Mickey Mentor, what's going on, buddy?
I'm living the dream, Nick. I'm excited to rile some people up tonight talking about our favorite team in stripes.
Absolutely. I like that you said rile up. It's kind of like your thing now. It's almost like you're taking on that role of the group here.
I think every show needs that one guy that just kind of pisses everyone off, and I'll be that guy. I'm gonna beat this drum until someone proves me wrong. So it's fun.
Fair enough. Well, we're glad to have you on board. We're also glad to beam up Scotty once again. Whoa, he looks completely different now. Clean shaven, man. What's going on, Scott? Did you have a good weekend? Clearly.
I did, yes. The kids wanted me to shave. I was thinking about keeping it going until the Bengals won a game, but the wife was not too excited about that, especially with the way they're playing. She thought that might not be till next year. So I went ahead and took it off this weekend. I went the whole weekend with a Fu Manchu, and my middle daughter came up and goes, "Dad, you look like a murderer." I got to say, she wasn't 100% wrong.
That's great. I did see pictures of it on Facebook, so well done.
It was sweet.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about doing that myself, because I haven't shaved in a couple weeks. Now, I don't have nearly the facial hair that the rest of this crew has, but I even thought to myself, like, what crazy thing could I do for this show? What Wild Man Walker type of thing could I do for this show? Like, can I do the no shave till the Bengals win? And I'm like, I don't think I would want to do that. So yeah, it's probably a smart choice by you, Scott. Let's also welcome into the show over on the West Coast, the best coast, the background king himself, Anthony Cosenza AC. What's up, bud?
Oh, just 2020 just is the gift that just keeps on giving. And when it comes to football and the Cincinnati Bengals, it is no different. So, how are you, Nick? You doing all right, buddy?
It is what it is, right? I mean, the Bengals, it's getting harder and harder to watch these games every Sunday.
You don't like the 7-pointers?
No, the fact they scored 7 itself was quite miraculous. We'll touch on that a little bit. But as far as it's just tough, right? I mean, when you know that I don't even know where to begin. This is how bad it was over the weekend. Let's get into our best and worst, shall we? AC, I'm going to start with you. Give me your best and worst from the weekend.
Ooh. I was never a good leadoff hitter. I was a better cleanup hitter. But let's see. I guess I will oh boy. Let's try and dig deep in the well to find the best of the weekend.
While you conjure that up, while you think of that, Mark in the chat room says, "Was I the only one laughing on Sunday?"
No. I don't think Mark was alone in that one. I guess I'll go best. Still some good plays by the Bengals pass catchers and their top 2 wideouts. I know Tyler Boyd exited the game early, but made a very nice play on a short pass, took it all the way to the house. T. Higgins is proving that he's a future number 1 receiver for this team. And even Drew Sample had a high Pro Football Focus score this week. So I guess I'll go kind of some good stuff from the pass catcher group, even with a backup quarterback, and the stats that they are putting up there is okay based on all the attrition there. The worst, I mean, there are so many places to go, Nick, but I guess I got to go with the officiating crew. This officiating crew this week, and the Bengals were probably going to lose this game regardless of if it was a perfectly called game from a referee standpoint, but these refs completely lost control of the game. They were overreacting to calls, and it led to bench clearing situations and all kinds of different chaos. So, I just thought it was a ridiculous outing by that referee crew.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I think what you're trying to say here, Anthony, is that the officiating wasn't why the Bengals lost, right? Like,
No.
we're just making a general comment on how poorly the game was officiated. I went back and I was watching the game today, and I was watching a play in the first quarter, and I think it was Xavier Howard, the cornerback who got ejected with Tyler Boyd. I think that's who it was. Lined up in the neutral zone, like by a half yard. Yep. And I freeze framed it. I put it on Twitter. Like, how does this not seen? Like, there's an official. Aren't there two officials on the line of scrimmage? How does that not get caught? I mean, he's passed the ball. That's how far into the neutral zone he is. So yeah, that was just a microcosm of how poorly things were officiated over the weekend. So
Real quick, Nick, I know we want to get to the other guys too, but I just real quick, it's funny that you say that because the Bengals had a 7-0 lead. Mickey, I think, pointed out last week, wasn't this an 11-point spread in this game? I don't know what it was right at kickoff, but probably still right around there. What did the Bengals lose by?
It's
12.
Insane.
They lost by 12. So I don't want to put on the tinfoil hat, but I mean, I guess it's kind of like it was a little weird how that game turned on a dime, especially with some officiating. But I still don't think the Bengals would have won, regardless if it was a perfectly called game. But total segue there. But thought I'd bring it up.
Mickey, best and worst.
The best is it's not really a weekend, but I'm going to celebrate the Steelers' loss yesterday. That was the best. The worst would have to be my man Bobby Hart. One of the worst effort plays we've seen from him. Just passed around on Twitter. Didn't even make an attempt to block a guy that ended up not being a fumble, but man, just a weak effort. A joke of a play by a guy that at one point our offensive line coach praised this year.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mickey. I saw, I think it was yesterday, Willie Anderson actually defending him on that play, saying that actually it wasn't his fault and that it was Quentin Spain's fault. Because I guess Hart, if you go back and watch the replay, 53 for the Dolphins was lined up wide like he was going to rush, but then he dropped into coverage. So he was fully expecting somebody to be on his right. And so Spain was supposed to shift over and didn't. And that's why. So Willie came to bat for him.
I've never been a lineman, but aren't you supposed to go, ankle
inside
to ankle? Out? Yeah. Protect the gaps first. Like, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but it sure seemed pretty bad. Yeah.
It didn't look good. And it's not the first time we've said that about Bobby Hart this year, right?
Right.
So all I was just saying is that Willie came out and actually defended Bobby Hart, which was that was kind of eye-opening to me because Willie's one of the best.
He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. So, but you're right. But that just kind of just shows you where the line play in general was just poor all over the place. Right?
So let's put it on both of them, like that side line. I think our best lineman this weekend, and AC said it, was Sample, right? His grades on pass and run blocking were pretty high, like top 3 this week from the position. Can we just move him in, make him play tackle? At least he knows how to get a body in front of someone.
Didn't we draft Jake Fisher, right? Wasn't he a tackle / tight end kind of guy? Yeah. That was that 2015 draft class we keep going back to.
So
good old Lachey's. All right, Scott, your best and worst?
Oh boy. I agree with AC on the worst being officiating. That was just brutal. I disagree with him on the fact that it may not have impacted the outcome of the game. I'm sure we'll get into that later. The other worst was the Jonah Williams injury. Probably the Bengals' only good offensive lineman right about now. Last thing you want to see is an injury. Best, I would say, I thought the defense again played pretty well. I know none of us are fans of Lou Anarumo. I know he's working with a decimated defense, but all in all, I thought the defense kept him in that game and gave him a chance to win it. So as much as we like to pound on Lou and the defense as a whole, I thought the defense played respectable, which it's sad to say, but is I guess good for this team.
I'm glad you brought that up, Scott, because I also, while watching it back today, I thought defensively they did pretty well. I think if you can hold a team, for as bad as this offense is, if you can hold a team to 19 points and sort of somewhat still be in the game, that to me says that they're playing. We'll say okay, right? Like,
I mean, in the day and age right now of the NFL, if you hold someone to 19 points defensively, that's a good day.
Considering you had -7 yards of offense in the second half.
I mean, regardless of what your offense does, right? If you give up 19 points, that's good defensively.
And on the road.
Yeah.
All right, Mickey.
I don't know. I mean, it's tough. Like, I think our defense is playing better, but do you really think the foot was on the gas from the Redskins? Like, do you think
the football team?
Sorry. The football team. I'm sorry. That's a slip up. I don't know. Like, was there any, you guys talk about being in the game, a chance to win. I never saw the chance to win. I mean, we scored, I don't know, on a play that probably doesn't all the time. And then I don't know. I think the football team probably just played conservatively, keep people healthy, they're looking at next week already by second quarter.
Yeah, to Mickey's point, I did a little research. Believe it or not, I did homework, guys. Can you believe it? You can take this for whatever you want, but just looking at the scores of 2019 and 2020, Bengals defense or their team allowed 21 points in 13 of 16 games last year and 35 or more points in 3 games last year. This year, they've given up 21 or more points in 7 of 12 games and 35 or more points in the same amount of games, 3, with still 4 to play. So, I mean, we can look at these last couple of games and say, hey, I mean, 19 points, you're supposed to win those games, and rightfully so. But it was kind of the same deal last year. There were a couple of those games last year that were one-possession games, low-scoring games. The offense couldn't get it going. And this year, I mean, from a macro perspective, at least points allowed, that sort of thing, it's still not exponentially better. But, there's still some of those embedded excuses of injuries and whatnot. But take that for what you will. I just kind of decided to look that up a couple minutes before we took the air, because I thought it may paint a picture one way or the other, and it really doesn't. I mean, it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, but AC, I think in fairness, we're all, willing to criticize Lou and everyone else. I'm taking a look here at the across the league, and only 2 teams average less than 19 points that they give up on defense, right? So in today's NFL, when you give up 19 or less points, you're supposed to win. One of those teams is the 11-1 Steelers. So, I'm not saying they were playing great offenses, but in today's day and age, if you're giving up 19 points in an NFL game, that's good for a defense. Regardless of if you should win or what the situation is in the game, that's good.
Maybe. I'm talking about the football team. I meant the Dolphins. I had the Steelers win the Steelers loss on my brain. I don't know. Like, Scott, you don't put any credit to the Dolphins aren't pressing. They're just playing conservative.
I mean, it's basically a 1-score game most of the game. I can't imagine they weren't trying to score.
What was the threat, though? What was the threat from Cincinnati?
None.
Yeah, NFL teams don't try not to score. Regardless of the threat, they're trying to score. I mean, take a look at
it's not college. They're not trying to score 70 points.
Go look at the Patriots and Chargers game.
A game, right?
45-0. If you can score in the NFL, you score. You don't give up the chance that a fluke touchdown.
I guess this is where my frustration comes. Like, we're getting accustomed to looking for these nuggets of greatness from a team that it's not there, right? And so we're like, well, we're holding teams, and you even throw out the Steelers holding 19. Like, we're not even in the same league as that team right now, and yet we're saying, oh, we kept them to 19. There's a positive. Like, no, that's not positive at all.
Yeah, but you're missing the point. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that if we're going to criticize, we also got to give credit when they do play well. And in these two situations, when they give up 19 points, that is playing well. That's an objective standard.
What I will say, and I see where Scott's coming from, Mickey, that defense is seeing that offense play like poo-poo. Like they know they're going to be back out on the field in a matter of minutes.
True.
Because they cannot sustain a drive. They can't run the ball. They can't convert. -7 yards in the second half. And they still managed to, well, I think they gave up 16 points, maybe, or what was the math? 13 points in the second half. There was a touchdown and 2 field goals.
Well, remember that defense also scored a touchdown and had it taken back. A touchdown that I would say should not have been taken back.
Well, here's the other thing that it kind of shows a disparity, and you can take this for what you will as well. Tua threw for almost 300 yards and a touchdown. Some of it was kind of pedestrian stuff, but he still put up close to 300 yards on 26 completions. You had another 100-plus yard rushing day combined from the Dolphins. I know the Giants, even though it was kind of a mishmash at quarterback because of Danny Dimes leaving the game, but they didn't throw for a ton of yards. But, I mean, Gallman had a decent day on the ground, if I remember correctly. I don't have that in front of me exactly. But so, I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, there's an argument there that could be made that, teams are just kind of doing what they need to do and putting up maybe some stats and not necessarily the points to hang on to the ball, grind the clock, and just get the win. And I think that's maybe what you're seeing a little bit these past couple of games where there's potentially a little bit of fool's gold from only giving up 19 points on the road. So, I mean, there's an argument there, but I do see Scott's point in that you give up 19 points in the big picture of things, you probably should be winning that game.
That's my only point. That's my only point, guys. My only point is in the NFL, giving up 19 points objectively is a good day defensively. That's my only point.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, Ben in the comments also said, how bad Tua looked, and I would say Tua had a tale of two halves, right? Like, yeah, in the first half he was terrible, in the second half he was a different player. I mean, I saw a lot of chatter about benching him for Fitzpatrick, and then he comes out and he plays significantly better in the second half. Are those 19 points in those stats because he played poorly as a rookie? He showed some of those rookie things. I don't know. Like,
also coming off an injury too.
He also had a big bomb play that probably should have been completed to Jakeem Grant against cornerback extraordinaire LaShawn Sims that basically Grant just kind of let go through his hands. I mean, that was kind of a gimme. It was a great ball. So
yeah.
That's shoulda, woulda, coulda. So.
Yeah, we can't play shoulda, woulda, coulda for the Dolphins here and then say that we can't do that with the Bengals. So I'm just trying to bring objectivity here to the arguments.
Do you think the opposing offensive staff, when they put on the tape, isn't it pretty obvious that they look at it and go, yeah, we're going to throw to 38, right? Isn't it painfully obvious that's what they're going to do? I mean, there were a couple plays where I thought William Jackson had like the interception, right? I thought that pass interference was kind of a crap call. They went to jam and the receiver fell over and he made a good play on the ball. But 38. I mean, why? I don't understand why he continues to be put out there. I mean, I know there's nobody else because everybody seems to be hurt, but man, I keep getting confused. Who was the one who tweeted about
Phillips?
Oh, so that's not even who I'm talking about.
No.
Never mind. Moving on. I don't have a best or best of worst that I couldn't think of any more because you three rattled them all off pretty much. So I'll say Logan Wilson still looks like a linebacker that the Bengals is showing some promise, right? So there's my best. I'm grasping at straws here.
That position group's a lot better this year than they were last year.
Sure. That's true. And it's clear they focused on that in the draft for sure. So let's move on, shall we? Let's talk a little bit about let's talk about Zach Taylor, shall we? there's a lot of debate right now about whether or not Zach Taylor has lost his team, right? Like we read the report from at least Jesse. We continue to see rumblings on social media, and then you watch what happened over the weekend. Now, to me, the evidence is there that I don't think he has the control that he thinks he has, right? And said it after the game, like, I look at a couple of things. One, how do you have -7 yards of offense in the second half? Like, you couldn't rush for 7 yards, at least just 7 yards, even with like quarterback draw, like -7 yards in an entire half. That's really hard to do in today's offensive NFL. Then you have one of your captains, Sean Williams, clearly stomping on the calf of a Miami Dolphin player, Bush League play, and is suspended for this week's game because of it, and rightly so. He deserves that. I think we all would agree with that statement, right?
Yep.
And then you get Tyler Boyd, one of your also so-called leaders on this team, getting ejected. I mean, whether or not the ejection was correct, he still put himself in that position to get ejected, right? Last I checked, you are a 2-win team. What is there to be jawing and jabbing about right
I don't know. On that one,
I don't. Yeah, I don't.
I'll disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
When a guy pushes you that late out of bounds,
Fair.
probably running his mouth, like at some point you're just sticking up for yourself.
Okay.
That was a crap call.
And in fairness, he didn't do it. There's nothing he did that
He hit him in the head. He did hit him.
That shouldn't have resulted in an ejection. I don't. Neither one of those guys should have been ejected.
I think that call came from New York, and I think it's crap. I don't think it's the right. But if you have a zero tolerance policy, I get it.
Okay.
I think you and I would agree though that probably happens in every game, right? The shove to the face.
Sure.
I mean, that's not ejectable. That's weak. Both of those guys should have been allowed to stay.
Right.
Should have been offsetting penalties.
I think it's the kind of thing like if it goes to the principal's office, then the punishment comes. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And by it going to New York, that was the call. So I'll disagree with you on that one. But Nick, remember when we had Hobson on? I talked about does he have the locker room? Like, I don't think so at all. Did you see Adam Jones?
Yes.
Comments like it's just not working.
Yeah, look,
we're not going to start going to Adam Jones for rational thinking, gentlemen.
Wait, why not? He was smoking a blunt in his video.
We've got to draw a line of common sense somewhere. And Adam Jones, especially Adam Jones on social media, has got to be so far across the line of which we draw.
But he wasn't wrong.
No, not at all.
He wasn't wrong.
I do disagree with him. I'm sure we'll get to that.
So let's look. I mean, what do you make of this Sean Williams thing? I mean, he's a captain on the team.
That was bad.
You can't be doing that.
Nope.
This is a byproduct of. You asked a question, Nick. Does he have control of the locker room? I thoroughly believe Zach Taylor has control of the quote-unquote Zach Taylor guys, the young guys that he has brought in over the past 2 years, whether it's free agents, whether it's guys he drafted for his mold. I fully believe, and there may be a couple of leaders like a Tyler Boyd or a Joe Mixon who are kind of saying and doing the right things, but I fully believe that the remainder of the Marvin guys have checked out and they are sick of losing. They are sick of the message and they have tuned out. And I think that there are frustrations that are starting to boil over that have come, especially with Joe Burrow getting hurt behind that offensive line. And when you see two of your most important players or two guys designated as captains, one of your most important offensive players, Tyler Boyd and Sean Williams, both get ejected, with Williams being far more egregious than Boyd's situation. I mean, it's hard to make an argument that this coach has full control of every single person in that locker room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So control over every person in the locker room. No, I think we can all agree there's people in that locker room that are disgruntled. I think we knew that from the beginning of the season. Some of those guys are still there. Some are not. You know, this is the Sean Williams guy. Remember, we talked about him a couple of weeks when AC wasn't on the show. This is a guy that went to the Twitter sphere regarding his complaints with the locker room as well. I wouldn't necessarily consider Sean Williams to be. I don't know why he's a captain. But this is a guy that's had problems with penalties in the past. I think he's been ejected and suspended in the past for dumb moves. So I can't say that he surprised me. I'm not going to lump the Tyler Boyd thing in. I thought that ejection was weak,
It was very weak,
to say the least. Everything I've heard from Tyler Boyd indicates to me that he is bought in. So I don't think the Tyler Boyd situation has anything to do with Zach Taylor. Deshaun Williams, maybe. I think that's a guy that's clearly frustrated. That's a guy that I'm surprised they kept on the team this year anyways. Even more surprised that he's a captain. But at this point, I think he's another guy that, regardless of who the coach is next year, I think he's a guy that needs to be gone. From a play standpoint, I don't think he offers a lot. From a discipline standpoint, he seemed to has been a problem over the years with his penalties. So I'm okay with him being gone.
I guess where I'm going, and I know Mickey, I don't want to cut off Mickey, but I guess what I'm kind of getting at is you're seeing uncharacteristic things on the field in terms of discipline things, in terms of anger and frustration that are showing out from players that don't normally see it. I don't sit here and there's probably been some unnecessary roughness penalties and whatnot against Sean Williams, but I don't sit here and look at a track record like a Vontaze Burfict or somebody like that. I don't, that's not who that guy is. So I kind of go back to, if you remember, I think it was 2016 or 2017 when AJ Green absolutely freaked out on Jalen Ramsey, right? The low key AJ Green, and he beat the hell out of Jalen Ramsey on the field. And you go, where the hell did this come from? And I think that was a boiling over point from that Steelers game, and the continued losing, their inability to rebound has spilled over at that moment. And I think now, 4 wins in almost 2 seasons, you're seeing uncharacteristic anger, particularly when your franchise quarterback goes down with a season-ending injury. You're seeing uncharacteristic behavior from some of your guys who should be your team leaders, and that's not a sign of a solid locker room, in my opinion.
That happened in 2018, right? With Jalen Ramsey?
I thought it was 2017 or 2016. I could be wrong about that.
It wasn't the last year of Marvin, but okay. And look, Marvin had his guys that also did dumb stuff too. I mean, it's not like the previous coaching staff didn't have these guys on the team too. I mean, we all know it was well documented, these shenanigans that Vontaze Burfict did. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Mike Thomas hit, right? The first one.
No issues.
Again,
the referees created that scenario. They created both hits. The first one was as legal as you can hit. He put his head down because the guy he's hitting is 4'4", right? But it was off to the side, and he hit him with his shoulder legally.
And the ball was already there.
Yep. Tirico makes some statement. The next one was egregious, stupid, but that was a FU hit for what the referees did the first time. And you'll notice, had the ball been there, it would have been another legal hit. He was just too early.
Do you think it was an FU hit, or he just got there?
No,
early?
It was an FU hit. It was a total, because he even got down lower to show it was more about the hit to him than the ball. Like, he probably meant to time it better. I don't think he meant to get there early, but he was going to lay a hit just like it so that they could see it on film and show that he was legit. He just got there too early.
Yeah, he was laughing.
Yeah, the referees created that scenario. So tagging him with the dirty hits and all that's bullshit.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the first one was clean.
Yep.
I thought he
and then announcers watch it in slow motion and say he lowered his helmet. Like, how else do you get your head out of the way? Like, and hit a guy lower. Right. If he keeps his face up, that their helmet's touched right face mask to face mask, and that's 100% penalty. Like, it's just dumb. Like, it's just so dumb.
Yeah. I thought the announcers really did a bad job of talking through that one.
Shocker. You got the anti-Bengals bias there.
It's easy to put the dirty tag on the Bengals, and that was just another example of the play was a fine play. It was flagged. It shouldn't have been flagged, but it wasn't a dirty play.
Yeah. Second one, maybe reckless.
Yeah.
Not dirty, but reckless.
I don't think dirty.
But
undisciplined.
Anyway, just a rough one this weekend. I personally, when you see, I mean, it's rare that you see the opposing coach come over and, I mean, what the heck?
Should have been a flag.
Yeah, so that's where I really got peeved off about this game was, in the NFL, we're throwing guys out like Tyler Boyd and Xavier Howard for a shove to the face, right? You can't have an NFL coach running across the field. If that happens, that's an ejection. And here you have the announcers, praising him. You have people online praising him. Remember, in that scuffle, a player on the Dolphins punched a coach on the Bengals, right? And we have people who are not holding Brian Flores accountable. That situation doesn't escalate without Flores running across the field. If Flores stays on his sideline, as he should have, that situation doesn't happen, right? And instead, Flores should have been the first one ejected before the players. In most sports, if you come off the bench, automatic ejection. If you're a coach and you come off the bench, automatic ejection. So the fact that Flores was allowed to stay in the game and he's praised for, staying up, having his players back, that was just BS. And that whole situation really pissed me off.
I like the take, Scott. I agree with you. Well said. Okay, let's move on.
Everyone's silent.
Hard to disagree, man. I mean, it's a little bit of a speaking out of both sides of your mouth type of situation, right? I mean, it's just kind of like, you protect the players and all this kind of stuff, and then your coaches should be the example for your team, and he's rushing out there, and then he's lauded for sticking up, quote unquote, sticking up for his guys. So it just seems a little hypocritical, but what do I know?
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I'm sure if Zach Taylor did that, it would be lack of discipline.
He probably would have been ejected.
Yeah. If Joey Porter does that, that's a penalty on the Bengals.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. Look at that. Somebody's just were your ears burning, Scott? Any relation?
Look at that. That is a relation. And apparently we think the same.
Yeah. Is that your brother?
It is my brother, yes.
Brian Bantel, right, chiming in with similar to the Joey Porter situation. Wow, that is very
a smart man in the chat room.
Let's take a minute before we move on to the show. Let's take a minute to remind everybody you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Head on over to Apple Podcasts. You can find the show. We got a new review this week, gentlemen. This is from I'm going to say Diaz. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. He says, "You're simply the best. Tina Turner belting it out. Simply the best. Better than all the rest. This was my favorite Bengals pod. I'm glad to have them back. Keep up the good work, guys." Thank you for the great review. We'll just say Dez. We appreciate you chiming in. If you want to leave a review for the show, head on over to Apple Podcasts, do a search for Inside the Jungle, find us there, and leave us a rating and review. It will certainly help us be found there in the Apple Podcast platform there. And make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss a single episode of Inside the Jungle. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss that, including us here on YouTube. And hit that subscribe button so you get a notification when we go live every Tuesday night at 9:00 talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, let's do some shout outs, shall we? Mickey, you want to start us off? You got a shout out this week?
I'm going to shout out longtime fan Mike Hudson. Kind of blew me up for something I didn't even tweet. But he's going through a little challenge right now. And so I'm going to shout him out. Hopefully makes him smile.
That's right. He likes to be called Mike Hudson Sucks.
Yes.
He's a good dude.
He doesn't suck this week.
No, he's a good dude. A big supporter, not just of this show, but the things we do over at Cincinnati Soccer Talk as well. So, Mike, also thinking about you too. Good shout, Mick. Scott, you got one?
I do. Random shout out. Shout out to a guy at the Twitter handle of Scott Gibb 1. Was sitting around on my couch last night and happened to come across a tweet of his that showed a picture of what Bengal seats could look like. The picture was actually from an article that I put together on Cincy Jungle 6 years ago. Wow. Of a Photoshop that I had done on the Bengal seats. that somehow he came across and made its way back to the interwebs. And so shout out to Scott Gibb1 for sharing that.
You made that photo?
I did. My mad Photoshop skills.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Wow. Somebody posted that photo in my Cincinnati Soccer Talk Slack this week, actually.
Yeah, it was part of a Cincy Jungle article back in 2014.
Wow. No kidding. That is crazy. Well, too bad it will never happen.
Too bad. You're right.
But it did look good. It did look good.
Thanks.
AC, you got a shout out?
Yeah. I'm going to go. I thought I was always kind of a diehard fan of the Bengals, and I rep California. I rep the Bengals in California and all this stuff, and I've been to a lot of games. But you know what I don't have? I don't have a Bengal-themed costume wherein I wear it to Cincinnati Bengals games, whether they're home or away. So I'm going to give a shout-out to the Bengalorian, the guy who dresses up like the Mandalorian. He apparently won the Pepsi Houday Fan Challenge for the year as the Bengals mega fan. So go give him a follow. He's got quite a few now, but he's a pretty entertaining Twitter handle. Good guy. Interacts quite a bit with a lot of Bengals fans and podcasters like us. So I wanted to give him a shout out for winning that award.
Yeah,
he's from California. He's in California?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was just patting myself on the back.
Oh, okay.
I was trying not to be. I'll try not to be too sore to pat myself on the back, but
he is a good follow. I thought you were saying he's from California.
I'm going to give a shout out this week to Ace and Zim over at New Stripe City, and the Orange is a New Black podcast. AC, I know you're familiar with those gents. I really enjoyed their Twitter debate today about taking a wide receiver as high as the second round in the draft this year, and the reason for it. And it was a really entertaining debate on Twitter today. And I happen to agree that they should draft a wide receiver maybe sometime in the third round. And I compare it to back when the Bengals drafted Chris Henry in the third round. And you look back at that time when they had Chris Henry, they had 85 and Chad Johnson. They had 84 and TJ. Right now you've got 85 and T. Higgins. He's clearly wide receiver one for the Bengals going forward, right? They have their 84 with 83 and Tyler Boyd. And they need that Chris Henry. They need that burner that's going to get past defenses, stretch the field, because right now teams are just stacking the box because there's no deep threat. I'm not saying T. Higgins can't get deep, but there's nobody stretching the defense. So they can just sit within the 10 yards of the line of scrimmage and stop the run. And so for me, I agree. I think you got to take a wide receiver potentially in the as high as the third round if it's there, maybe even in the second. I know everybody wants linemen. I know they need edge rushers, but for me, I would take a look at wide receiver as well. So they are my shout out. Really enjoy what they do. So make sure you again, if you want shouted out here on the show, follow us Inside Jungle Pod on Twitter, and we'll get you shouted out. Along those lines, gentlemen, because as disappointing as 2020 has been so far, we are already in that mode considering the Bengals have been eliminated from postseason contention. Shocker. I know Mickey loves looking ahead to the draft and free agency, but if you had to rank the position groups, we were going to put out wide receiver, offensive line, defensive end, and cornerbacks. Out of those four, and if you're watching us live, I want you to rank the order of importance that you would draft if you were the Bengals. So, Mickey, I'll start with you. Out of those four position groups, what's your ranking order of importance?
Now I go to the big guys. So I'm going to go offensive line, then the defense end, right? Big guy there. And then I'd go corner, then wide receiver. That's my order of importance.
Okay. Why cornerback? Are you concerned about the free agency?
No, I think I don't know. I saw a tweet. I'd have to do more like research, but I saw a tweet a couple weeks ago where basically it's Jesse Bates just cleaning up a bunch of messes in the secondary, and I believe some of that's true. Like while we have corners that can play, sometimes we don't have that consistent.
You mean corner?
Corner, yeah.
That's not fair. I think Mackenzie Alexander's done okay. Wait, and they were supposed to have Trey Waynes.
Right. And so I don't know. I haven't seen enough. And so that's why I rank that higher than wide receiver.
Okay. How about you, Scott?
Yeah, I agree with Mickey. I got the exact same order at offensive line, then defensive end. I go with corner over wide receiver for two main reasons. One being that I think it's harder to find a good cornerback on the free agency market. And two, even if you do, they're extremely expensive, where I think you can find productive wide receivers on the free agency market as well as lower in the draft. I don't think you can really – I don't think there's not a lot of examples of low round DBs, becoming good players. So that's why I would rank the DB over the wide receiver.
Stripe in the chat room. He says offensive line, offensive line, offensive line, offensive line.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong, Anthony.
Yeah, I have a little bit. Sometimes I have a little bit of an old school mindset when it comes to building a football team, and I'm always, I said this before, I think on this show, get your quarterback, protect him, and rush the other team's quarterback, right? So the Bengals have their quarterback, and hopefully he'll be back in 100% next year. But I think you got to go offensive line is the first. You can say edge rusher, but guys, interior defensive line for this team needs help. Christian Covington, impending free agent. Xavier Williams, I think he's on a rental deal, right? Geno Atkins, 2 pressures and a tackle so far this year? Probably a salary cap liability next year. Mike Daniels on another 1-year rental deal as well. So we can say edge rusher, and they need edge rush help. They need defensive line help across the board because they don't have a lot of guys that are under contract going into next year. And you can also look at Josh Tupou, who I think is under contract, but he didn't play at all this year. So I wouldn't overlook interior defensive line either, but I would go offensive line, defensive line as a general rule. And then I would actually prioritize wide receiver over corner because wide receiver has 3 or 4 impending free agents as well. I mean, you've got AJ Green, John Ross, Alex Erickson, and Mike Thomas that are all set to be free agents. So you can say, of course, their production this year can be far surpassed, but you got to have the bodies and productive people to do that. So, whereas corner, you're going to have Waynes back. Hopefully, maybe you re-sign Mackenzie Alexander. You've got a situation to deal with William Jackson. I mean, it's kind of a coin flip between wide receiver and corner, but in terms of personnel losses, there's a lot of potential losses at wide receiver that the team's facing next offseason.
And I think this is why, and I remember Marvin doing this consistently, right? They always drafted corner, especially late in the first round, right? I remember they drafted Jonathan Joseph, Leon Hart, Marquez Denard. Like, that's what they did. They drafted first-round corners.
Right.
And then when it got time to say goodbye, they let them go. I personally, the way I look at today's NFL, you got to be able to score points. And to me, defense is becoming less and less of a priority. So for me, if I had to prioritize it, yes, I still go offensive line as 1, but I go wide receiver 2 because they are going to need help there. I'm not saying you go draft 5 receivers, but I think you need to get that wide receiver. Well, we'll call him wide receiver 3 in this three receiver set. That's going to stretch the defense and is going to be, a nice pairing on the other side of the field from T. Higgins. Stretch the defense and give your running backs some more space to run the ball a little bit. So I'll go O-line, receiver, pass rusher, and then cornerback. And I only say that because I think it was so plain to see over the weekend, right? How the not just this weekend, but this season, the lack of pass rush is just, it's so non-existent that teams they're not even worried about protecting their quarterback. They don't need to be.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say, Nick, though, that a good offensive line, a good pass protecting offensive line makes the outside weapons look a little better.
100%.
Wouldn't you say that rushing the passer maybe makes the back end defenders look a little bit better if you're able to pressure the quarterback, sack the quarterback, force errant throws?
It works in tandem. I agree with you there. I don't disagree with that.
But I do like the wide receiver at number 2 for you, by the way. You could talk me into that.
Yeah, I just go back to, you remember how difficult this team was to defend when they had Chad, TJ, and Chris on the field. Like, they were unstoppable.
The squirrel, Kelly Washington.
Yeah. Forgot about that too.
What,
oh my god!
But you don't think
that's also when they had a great offensive line?
Yeah, they had a line. But you don't think you have a good line, a good quarterback, they can make receivers better? I mean, remember Jerome Simpson? Do you remember? Like, you put those other pieces in place, you can take those later wide receivers and make them productive, right? Like, we're not in the market for a number 1 guy. We're not really looking for someone to stretch the field. We have receivers that can make that happen. I don't know.
There is also that counter argument too, Mickey, and this was brought up ad nauseum during the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers has never had a skill position draft in his NFL career, I believe. Right?
Right.
In the first round, you mean?
In the first round.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they need to go wide receiver. I think we all know where the pick is going to be.
Where is it going to be?
It's got to be Sewell.
I disagree 100%.
What?
100%.
Well, who would you take?
So we had this debate.
Anthony.
No, Andy knows what I'm going to say. Cody and Bengals Talk both put up mock drafts over the weekend. I got tagged in them. Both traded back to get more positions. You're telling me adding Sewell to this line changes it? We get better at one spot. We just watched the whole right side of the line do nothing. And so we say adding one player. We have another guy on the other end who's hurt again, right? So we have durability issues. We honestly think drafting that one offensive lineman is going to change what this team is. Or are we back to 2-14 hoping to get another offensive lineman in the next draft? If we have the opportunity to get a haul of picks, I thought we should have done it this year. If we don't do it next year, like, what are we rebuilding?
I would hope that one of their fixes for the offensive line comes via free agency. I would rather
they were active in free agency this year. We praise them for their moves this year.
Right. But they've got to be active on the offensive line in free agency this year. There's two really good guards that are free agents in Joe Thuney and Brandon Scherf. I think they have to make a play for at least one of them. I would rather one of them and a rookie than two rookies.
But how long have you been a fan of this team? And do we build our team through free agency or do we build it through the draft?
Well, I know how we do it. What I'm saying is that, I'm using myself as the GM here.
Totally get it.
I realize that might be a silly idea with this team. But
it'd be better.
I don't like the idea of fixing the line with only rookies because I want at least a veteran in there that can help gel the line and has some experience. So I want one of those fixes to come via free agency. I realize they may not do that, but that's what they should do. Right.
And Chris Hubbard in the chat here has a bit of a counter argument that I think holds some weight. He says, every time we trade back, we screw ourselves. And this is, you want to go back and you look at the draft where the Bengals moved back and they missed out on Frank Ragnow, who, by the way, is one of the top centers in the league now. They got Billy Price, and that one set him back quite a bit. The Bengals move back. They never move up. They never really, if they have a high pick at times.
They move up to get Ryan Finley.
What you need are high impact blue chip players. If you have a big time pick, a top pick, you have to get those blue chip players. That's why you're seeing Joe Burrow was playing well before he got hurt. T. Higgins playing well before he got hurt, or before he had a rough early start, but he's playing very well. If you think Penei Sewell is a guy that is a can't miss tackle prospect in the mold of a Munoz, a Willie Anderson, or Andrew Whitworth, what have you, you have to take that guy. And you
Joe Thomas.
A Joe Thomas. If you think he's that guy, and I'm not quite there yet, but I think that guy's pretty damn good. I've watched him. He's pretty damn good. If he is a can't miss prospect at one of your biggest positional group needs, you have to take that guy.
But the reason why I bring up Joe Thomas is, what did he do for Cleveland?
wasn't really a fault of his own, though, right?
Not at all.
They
Not at
didn't
all.
draft the quarterback. They did. I mean, they were a mess.
Well, they
all
did.
over the
They did draft the quarterback.
Multiple
They
quarterbacks.
drafted
multiple
lots
times.
of them, yeah.
by positional name only. Not
Right. No, but that's kind of my point, right? Like we're to a point where, I'm sure it's fans of every team. I don't really follow every team, but Bengals fans always say we're that one piece away from competing, and this team is many, many pieces away from competing, right? And so I don't know. Like, look at the mock draft that Cody Kai and Bengals Talk put together, and tell me those don't make you a little bit excited. Like, there are multiple potential blue chips. Here's the other thing. Yes, trading back we could miss, but what if Sewell ends up being a bust? Then we're screwed altogether, right? Like, I don't know. Like, if you have the opportunity to get multiple first and second rounds for a pick, take it. Take those 4 players. You have a better chance of, the ceiling's a lot higher, I say. I mean, Joe Thomas is a stud, right? Like one of the best linemen I've seen in a long time, but he never went anywhere because the team, similar to the Bengals, like they couldn't put the right pieces around him. And so that's my only thing. We will continue to talk about the draft until we truly rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, we also have to remember more pieces doesn't necessarily mean better, right? I mean, they got 2 offensive linemen in 2015 that,
Yeah, you can miss.
That didn't turn out well, yeah.
It's not guaranteed. I get it, but
I think to AC's point, like, if
Joe
you
Burrow
have
got us 2 wins. I mean, everyone's a Joe Burrow fan, right? Like he's better than Dalton. Like no one's arguing that. We still had 2 wins, and everyone's say, "Well, this back half is when he would have got all his wins." Really? Like Goodberry just posted, right? Joe Burrow was sacked 4 times in his final 10 quarters. And then Allen and Finley have been sacked 8 times in the last 2 games. That's 12 sacks in 10 quarters. Like no quarterback is going to be successful behind a line like that. And what we're saying is if we get Sewell, we're there. Like I don't think we're there.
I don't think anyone said we're there, but what I'm saying is I think that fills one hole. That's one hole you don't have to worry about. 2 rookie linemen, regardless where they are, that aren't maybe as good, you don't necessarily fill that hole. I agree with you. If there's not a blue chip prospect that you think fills that hole, then yes, I think a couple extra picks is the better route to go.
Many times in the draft, the Bengals have valued quantity of picks instead of quality of players with the picks that they choose. They don't move up to get the impact players because they don't want to part with their beloved compensatory picks, right? They don't want to move up, even when that became a rule when you can trade those things because you used to not be able to trade them. They would hang on to them, and then they still hang on to them and not really move up unless it's for a guy like Ryan Finley, which, yay. You need to get impact guys, especially in the draft. And I understand your point, Mickey. In that mock draft, I saw it. It was very nice. But if you're able to get a Scherf or a Thuney for some reason in free agency, you're able to retain Quentin Spain. Then you get a Sewell. You get Jonah Williams back. Your offensive line has Penei Sewell, Jonah Williams, Quentin Spain, Trey Hopkins, and one of these free agent guards. Then I kind of think that's a little different look than maybe making this trade and moving back and getting quote unquote potential lesser talents in some of these rounds.
Yeah. But then my last point is we were in a derby last year for Burrow, right? Like there was really 3 teams potentially playing for them. Who were the other 2 teams?
Miami, Washington.
And how are they doing?
Washington's doing all right with Alex Smith at quarterback.
I mean,
Better than us.
Miami's in the playoff chase. Yeah.
I mean, Miami had all the picks, and so they started rebuilding.
Well, we're going to get a lot of picks with all the players we lose in free agency, right?
Yeah. But not early ones.
Let me ask you guys this. Did you see 2 teams on Sunday that were grossly different? I didn't.
Are you talking about the Bengals and the Dolphins?
That's Homer vision.
It different in what respect? Are you talking about talent disparity? Or are you talking about coaching staff? Or what are you referencing?
Let me ask you this: do you agree that touchdown was overturned should have been overturned? The one the Bengals ran back for a touchdown.
The one that was a fumble that wasn't.
Yeah.
I thought it was an incomplete pass.
It was a called fumble on the field and got reversed.
I thought it was an incomplete pass.
And the official on the broadcast didn't think.
Okay. You're also
I know what play you're talking about. Okay, now
you had a 2-yard pass go for a 72-yard touchdown, which was your offense of the day.
You also had a field goal that we ended up missing from 53 yards
because Randy Cavs strikes
because Tyler Boyd got a 15-yard penalty. It wasn't offsetting. What did the Dolphins do on that? On the short field with 40 seconds, they turned it into their own field goal. Guys, that's a 13-point swing. That was a 12-point game.
But Scott, our scoring was a 2-yard pass we took for 72 yards. Yeah, that was our offense.
They had a first-round. They had a first-round NFL quarterback, and we had Brandon Allen. So
there's no comparison.
There wasn't much.
We had -7 yards at one point in the second half,
and they still barely beat us. I mean,
at one point in the second half, the Bengals had more ejected players than total yards on offense.
Yes. So you saying that you saw similar teams? I have to laugh at that.
I saw. Teams.
The score doesn't even laugh at it.
At no point were we in that game. At no point.
I saw two different teams personally.
Our scoring play was a busted defensive coverage on a 2-yard pass.
It wasn't even a busted defensive coverage, just a bad angle.
Yeah.
I got news for you guys. A lot of scoring plays are on busted coverages. That's what happens. That causes things to score.
If that was one of our scoring, scoring plays, that was our only offense. And we managed to go negative for the rest of the.
How many rushing yards did they have, Scott?
What's that?
How many rushing yards did they have? They had over 100. I don't think we had 20.
And yet they had a first-round quarterback behind their line, and we had Brandon Allen. So
I don't know. I can't jump on this take.
I mean, the game was close, and they had a first-round quarterback, and we had Brandon Allen.
How many wins do they have? They have 8 now?
7 or 8 now, I think, right?
And who here thinks they're on their way to success?
The Dolphins?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be pretty solid.
They went from one of the worst teams to probably making the playoffs. That's success.
Okay. You think they're going to win a game in the playoffs?
Well, doesn't matter. They're in the playoffs.
It's like we said, it's way better to get to the playoffs, to be one of those coveted spots than to be a 2-win team.
Are you convinced they'll be competitive again next year?
In that division, yes.
Okay.
Because the Jets are the Jets. The Patriots aren't what they used to be. And the Bills are pretty good. So I would say yes. I think they could be competitive next year.
Fair enough. I disagree.
And also, I think that their coaching staff is light years ahead of where we're at. And they both came in the league the same year as head coaches, if I'm correct. Then the Flores was the first-year head coach last year, along with Taylor.
Yep,
they were. Yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I hate to. I love you, Scotty, but I can't get on board with this one.
I mean, guys, we just agreed that the officiating calls that I called out were bad calls. That actually changes the result of that game.
It doesn't change the result
it's actually 17-16. If the Bengals win 17-16, are we comfortable with that? The answer is no, but
this was Jay Schrader, Paul Justin under center. That's the kind of brand of Bengals football that was on display Sunday. It was just borderline unwatchable. Yeah. Borderline unwatchable.
I'd never said it wasn't, but that game was close.
It was at one point.
We'd love to hear your thoughts, Bengals fans. Do you agree with Scott's take? Let us know. InsideTheJunglePod@gmail.com. Well, we'll read your feedback for sure on the show next week. It's an interesting take, Scott.
Quick poll: who thinks we win that game if we have Burrow in there?
Oh yeah, I think so. If it played out a similar way, I think Burrow would have got you the win there.
Well,
I don't know.
The coaching staffs are the same then.
Well,
that's my point, guys.
You got to remember, Burrow probably gets knocked out of the game when Bobby Hart whiffs on that block.
With the one of 6 sacks or 7 sacks or whatever. Jeez.
I think they would have had more offense. I don't know if they would have won, but it would have definitely been more watchable. That's for dang sure.
Gio ran for 30 yards.
Yep.
He had 30 yards rushing?
We think that Burrow changes that much.
Yes.
I think the officials alone made a 13-point swing in that game. Guys, we have evidence of that. I think Bullock makes a 38-yard field goal. That negates.
Oh, that's not given. That's not a given.
That's true. That's true. That's not a given, right? But it might prevent the Dolphins from getting the extra 3 points at the end of the half.
Yeah, you're seeing what Burrow was hiding, the deficiencies of this team that Burrow was able to hide when he was playing, and I think,
True.
I mean, they weren't really running the ball well with him in there anyway, Burrow, but they were able to put up far more points, and
and I'm not. This is not me bashing Burrow whatsoever. I don't see us winning that game with that line.
Right.
I think that line, and I think the more that line gets on tape, the easier it is for professional defenses to exploit us.
Noy called out before he called it. He said, "I'm going to have 3 sacks this weekend." Sure enough, he did. Probably could have had more.
Yeah, I just think it's conceivable that these were 3 seem to be pretty winnable games. Even with the Dolphins playing better this year, these seem to be 3 very winnable games, and this team could have conceivably been 5-6-1 or whatever at this point if Burrow stayed healthy. Maybe they improved some things. I don't know, but I do agree though that the offensive line is what it is. To Mickey's point, I mean it is what it is, and they just gave up 6 sacks or 7 sacks this weekend again, regardless of who's under center. So maybe we're just thinking and hoping that Burrow's the magic man that would be able to get these wins, and maybe that just really isn't thinking in reality based on.
We put together a line for Burrow. I'm on board, right? Because I'm the negative person on this. But let's say we trade back, we don't go Sewell, we get 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, and 2 of those linemen work out, right? They become solid contributors. Jonah's healthy, and say we do something in free agency, and now we have a potential line. We get Mixon back, and we have Burrow. This is a different team. This is a different offense. Now, I still think you have issues on the sidelines with the coaching staff, but that offense, you could significantly make a 9-game swing if you put those pieces in place, right? My concern is Sewell could be the best lineman ever, and if he's just a piece on a shitty line, then it's not going to change much, right? Then they just exploit the other side.
Yeah, the other thing we overlook here, gentlemen, is the guy that there's no one on this podcast that enjoys a good mock draft more than me. But these players, we all think they're great coming out, right? I mean, these same mock drafters hated Tyler Boyd coming out. These same mock drafters love PJ Dawson coming out, and plenty of the other guys that we've drafted over the years. Jake Fisher was one that a lot of mock drafters loved, was a first rounder that slipped to us. They're mock drafts, right? They're no guarantees. Penny Sewell's not a guarantee. So, yes, we'll get excited. Every year we get excited. Every year we find a reason why the guys that we drafted are going to be good and fix us. But they're unproven entities.
Mm-hmm.
And with a limited scouting staff, a lack of a GM, when you have more picks and you move back and the quality level drops, which that's just the reality. The quality level usually drops, at least on paper, of the guys you're picking. I mean, when you have the limited resources that are allocated to scouting, and your margin of error is really slim. So you can't really. That's why this team excels in some of these drafts where they have high picks, because those are the blue chip guys. Those are the guys that are can't miss guys. You look at 2011 draft, you look at the 2020 draft. They had high picks in both of those classes, and lo and behold, they did very well in those classes. Because they kind of sucked into having opportunities to get great players at the top of rounds. So
I think when we talked about this a little before, I think Marvin Lewis did a pretty good job if you look at his draft career on the players he brought in, and I think Duke Tobin got credit for that. And I question now whether that was more Lewis and his brain trust or Tobin, right?
Yep.
Valid question.
I'm gonna put a little bow on this segment here with a comment from John. At what point is the coaching the reason why the O-line is so bad? I think we could draft Sewell. We can go get Tooney in free agency. None of it matters if Jim Turner's still the offensive line coach next year. None of this matters if Zach Taylor's still the coach next year, in my opinion. And I think we all 3 agree with that, right? I mean, we could talk about all these what ifs, but none of this matters if the status quo remains, right? Something's got to change because this ain't working.
I mean, I think so, but I think none of us are qualified to really talk about offensive line coaching. I mean, I agree with Mickey on that play with Bobby Hart. I'm thinking, what the hell is he doing releasing that guy inside? But if Willie Anderson's saying that's the right call, is it an issue with the offensive lineman or the coach? I don't know. I mean, I'm not qualified enough to say the issue with the offensive line is the players versus the coach. What I saw from Hart was that seems like a terrible play. But if a Hall of Fame lineman like Willie Anderson is saying he made the right play, well,
someone made the wrong play, obviously.
Someone did. You're right. So,
yeah, there's a moment in that clip. If you watch it, Spain and Hart look at each other, middle of the play. Both of them are looking at each other like, "What are you doing, guy?
What are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, Willie called out more Quentin Spain than Bobby Hart at fault for that particular protection, and I see where he's saying that. But if you go slow motion on that thing, there is a moment where their eyes lock. It is like it's a holy crap moment.
Yep,
I mean,
for sure.
It was just anyway.
I don't trust Turner. I don't trust Zach Taylor. I just don't. I think changes need to be made. I think the fan base is starting to come around to that fact as well. Believe it or not, the Bengals do have a game this weekend, and it's going to be the Andy Dalton reunion. I saw an article today on The Athletic from Paul Dehner suggesting that Andy Dalton could be the backup quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals next year. How crazy! I don't think it'll happen, Paul. I think just having fun because God, he's got to write about a lot of bad things this year.
I'd take it.
Why would the Cowboys?
Well, he's on a 1-year deal. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I again, Paul Dehner just threw that out there.
Sure.
So anyway, the Bengals do have a game against the Dallas Cowboys this weekend, who are currently playing at the moment. How's that game going?
They're losing.
Who are they playing?
The
Ravens.
So yeah, so on short rest for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the Bengals have that going for them.
They're down 14 with the ball.
They got their own Randy Cavs going on. Looks like they've missed 2 field goals already.
Yeah.
Nice. So, shall we?
Hey, ladies, quit your babbling, because now's the time in the show when all the boys pull out their cojones and make bold predictions.
All right. What's your bold prediction for this week against the Dallas Cowboys? If you're watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, share us your bold predictions, and we'll be sure to put them here in the show. Start us off, Mick. What do you got?
I think I honestly think Dalton is going to make a statement, right? Like he's probably circled this one ever since he took over the job after Dak got hurt. So I'm going to say 350 and 4 touchdowns for Dalton.
Man. Yikes. That's probably where we're headed.
And I don't know the fan situation, but my wife asked, she said, do you think people would boo him? And I'm like, I don't think Cincinnati fans would. I was like, they might. Some will.
Are there going to be people in the stands?
I don't know. I don't know if they're doing that. But if there were, I wouldn't put past them to boo him, but
They might cheer for him.
Yeah.
Because the 2,500 people that are going to be allowed there, are the Bengals diehards who probably were big Dalton people anyway.
I don't know. There's a lot of Burrow jerseys in the – I mean, he was the GOAT. I mean, he was the scapegoat for a lot of people. He was the one piece we had to fix for this Bengals team to be competitive.
One of my pet peeves of all Cincinnati fans. We boo our players when they're here, and then we realize that they were not that bad, and we cheer them when they come back. So,
except for Carson, we didn't cheer Carson when he came back.
That was a little bit different situation.
Yeah, I remember being at that game.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty loud. Sitting next to Tim Bates, watching the Raiders. Oh yeah, I think it was Gino who put him down.
Oh yeah,
first pass plays.
Yep.
Yeah, that was awesome. All right, Scott, what's your bold prediction?
I got a tough time coming up with one this week.
Getting harder and harder.
I don't disagree with Mickey's. I think Dalton does have a good game. I'll go. I do think he'll have a good game. I'll go the Bengals get a pick 6 off of Dalton this week. But again, I think we'll get to the who wins, but I do think Dalton will have a good game.
Okay. AC?
Coming into tonight, I watched a little bit of that game, literally 4 minutes of the game before coming on the air. I saw a graphic wherein the Dallas Cowboys were 32nd in a number of different rush defense statistical areas. In the last handful of games since he has taken over for Joe Mixon, I think it dates back the last Browns game in late October. Does that sound right, guys? 13 carries, 37 yards, 15 carries, 62 yards, 8 carries, 30 yards, 9 carries, 18 yards, 8 carries, 32 yards, 12 carries for 30 yards last week. Hey, I'm gonna go big, guys. I'm gonna say Giovanni Bernard has 20 carries and 50 rushing yards, and you know that is a feat with this offensive line.
That's so sad. 20 carries and 50 yards. Wow.
One of these weeks, one of us is going to get our Geo prediction right.
As long as he's running behind Sample, he's got a shot.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
What's the Reverend Reggie Kelly doing these days? We could use him.
Man. So I'm along the same train of thought as UAC, except I'm flipping it. I think Zeke runs for over 200 yards.
Ooh.
I think
he's been struggling too, and there's no better way to get healthy than to play Cincinnati Bengals sometimes.
So here's what I think is going to happen.
It flipped on its head. We used to call it in favor of the Bengals, and now it's so lopsided against them.
Yeah, I think he has over 200 yards rushing, and I think Andy Dalton will have no less than 4 incompletions.
Wow.
That is bold.
Yeah, I think he's going to be throwing at 38 quite a bit. Yep. So that's my bold prediction. Nothing but cheery here on Inside the Jungle, that's for sure. Let us know what you think. Brian Bantel says Dalton needs a game-winning drive. That would be in the first quarter.
Sorry. Man, look at Subes coming in.
I see what you did there.
Zach Taylor will lose his job, and Andy will be the cause of it.
That's a good take.
Wow.
Mike Brown lets Andy Dalton fire Zach Taylor after the game.
Wow, yeah, that's a good one. John in the chat room on YouTube says, I believe the Cowboys will have 8 sacks this game. John, I hate to say it, that's not getting so bold anymore. That's becoming the norm with this squad. Oh, man. So, yes, those are our bold predictions. You got bold prediction? Hit us up. # bold predictions at Inside Jungle Pod on Twitter. Let's do some score predictions. AC, why don't you start us off?
I'll say 27-17 Dallas.
You think we score 17? Wow.
Well, hey, if Gio's getting those 50 yards, he's going to get in the end zone once or twice, right?
Fair enough. All right, so you're going to 27-17?
27-17, I'll say that. Yeah.
Scotty?
Oh, I got 24-13, and like I said, I'm going with a pick 6, so I got the offense putting up 6 and the defense putting up 7.
Okay, all right. Mickey?
Spread's 3.5, Subes, and I wanted to try to work something. I wanted to try to work something out for that, but I can't get there. But I have this game. The Bengals unfortunately lose, but it's 31-24.
Where are the 24 points coming from?
Have you seen the Cowboys play?
I will admit I have not.
Bad. They're pretty bad.
Their offensive line is rivaling ours for the
You've seen the Bengals play, and the spread is 3.5, so that should tell you something.
So this game is going to end 7-3?
I just don't think there's going to be a lot of defense on Sunday.
It'll end far too late.
Man. Well, who's going to be quarterback for the Bengals? I mean, how bad is Allen hurt?
I don't see a big drop off no matter which way we go.
Man. All right, so the spread's 3.5. I will say my score prediction. Man, I mean, really, if you think about it, the Bengals got their score on that one fluke play. I know, granted, Miami's defense
they almost won.
little...
Scott said they almost won.
How does a play become a fluke play? Where if this were a good season, it'd be what a brilliant play call. But since we don't like the team, it's a fluke play. It's like
no. If there was another good play, but that was the only good play of the game, so it becomes a fluke.
There was another good play. It was just flagged for a foul. Mike Thomas made a good play.
From now on, I want you guys to point out all of these scoring plays that other teams do that aren't from busted defensive coverages.
What happened to the show? Like, Scott was always negative, and now he's super positive.
I know, right?
He's
Nick hasn't picked the Bengals for 4 weeks now after not picking against them for 10 years.
Bizarro inside the jungle.
Am I consistent? I don't even know. Or am I just all over the map? I don't even know. I can't remember.
All right. I will say, because I went with the 200 yards rushing for Zeke and Dalton with less than 4 incompletions, I think the Bengals give up, I'll say 35. I'll go 35-6. I just don't see us getting points. That's how bad we are offensively, and I don't care how bad the Dallas defense is. I have
35-6. So did Cavs make 2 field goals, or did he miss an extra point?
2 field goals.
Okay.
I could because 2 of the incompletions will be interceptions. It gives them a short field. Oh my God, what is happening? I need to eat dinner. That's what needs to happen. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. We appreciate you watching us, whether you're on Facebook. We've got a few folks chiming in on Facebook this week. We appreciate you being with us. Of course, YouTube as always, and follow us on Twitter as well. Mickey, you got any final thoughts as we wrap up?
No, I've been getting a lot of chatter, during the week on people listening to the podcast and texting me. And so, I'll go back to the shout outs and, that stuff's awesome, right? Like, it's cool when people want to interact, whether it's during the show or 4 days later. It's still cool to talk about, what we're talking about in here. So that's my final thought for this week.
Good stuff as always. Appreciate you being on, bud.
Thanks, man.
All right, Scott, Mr. Positive, beam me up.
Yeah, the one good thing that's come from this Joe Burrow injury is I feel like it's livened up the debate here on the show the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We're all over the well, I shouldn't say we're all over the board. I'm bringing up the positivity and you guys are bringing down the negativity, but it creates some great debates about our Bengals. So really enjoying the last couple of weeks of all of the debates.
It has been fun, and appreciate you as always, Scotty.
Oh, thanks as always, Nick.
And last but not least, over on the West Coast, the best coast, AC.
Sewell Tooney, 21. That's the route.
All right.
Is that why you got the Aloha hat on?
Hey man, I'm trying to find some positive Hawaii vibes, I'm trying to mellow out, and 20's coming to a merciful close.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know what I did this weekend?
What did you do?
I tuned in and saw you on a pregame show.
Did you?
And I think for the first time in my life, I saw you without a hat. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yep. Kind of a little pompadour going. It's the COVID pomp,
It took me back. I did a double take. Like, wait, that's not AC. That's AC. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen you without a hat. Anyway, appreciate you being on, bud.
Thanks for having me.
My final thoughts is we're trying our best to make this as entertaining as possible because Lord knows, it's hard to watch this team right now with how bad they've been. We appreciate you downloading. As Mickey said, we love the feedback. We love hearing from folks that say, that they're glad we're back. We're glad to be back. And as bad as it is right now, this is you can say that this is the worst Bengals season we've ever podcasted Inside the Jungle. Like, go back to when we started to now. This is the worst it's ever been where we've done the show. So we're trying our best. It's new territory for us, but we're trying to make it entertaining. We hope you're enjoying it. Thank you for watching us live. Thank you for downloading after the fact. For Mickey, for Scott, and for AC, I'm Subs. We'll talk to you next week, Bengals fans. Hooday!
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 Hooday!